The Fast and the Furious from 2001 was a fun, cool, interesting movie that became a bit of a cultural phenomenon. It was a gripping look at this subculture that was taking life a quarter mile at a time. Everyone wanted to trick out their piece of shit cars and pretend to be a street racer. And what could have been a nice one-and-done movie turned into a ball of turd, rolling downhill and absorbing every piece of crap action movie trope on its way down, morphing into this giant, unstoppable mass of shit. I stopped watching this series about halfway through Tokyo Drift because I knew, as I thought everyone else knew, that this concept had run its race. It wasn't going to recapture the magic of the original. Little did we know that they had no intention of recapturing that magic, and that they would go on to turn these simple racing films into the most ridiculous series of action films in recent memory. As I said, I haven't kept up with the Fast and Furious movies at all, and I'm proud of that fact. So you'll forgive our ignorance with this review if we don't pick up on Easter eggs or references to past films or anything like that. Our issue with these movies is not simply that they have implausible sequences and that they play it fast and furiously loose with the laws of physics, even though it's supposedly set in our world and in our reality. Countless movies don't adhere to these rules, and it doesn't ruin the experience for us. The problem here is the utter deluge of mind-numbingly stupid things the movies force you to accept. The movie doesn't just ask you to not think too deeply about things from time to time. You literally have to turn your brain off for 2.5 hours to enjoy it. There's really no semblance of reality at any point, and the scope of it is constantly expanding. Apparently they've gone to space before? Then there was the runway incident in one movie where they were driving full speed down a runway for like 15 to 20 minutes, meaning that runway was roughly 30 miles long, nearly 10 times longer than the world's longest runway. To be fair, while this one, Fast X, still had plenty of reality-bending nonsense, it was actually pretty tame compared to what we've heard about previous entries in the series. That wasn't enough to keep it from being incredibly dumb, however. But the weirdest part of this film was Jason Mamoa's character, a ferocious villain hell-bent on revenge, a mastermind who's prepared for any outcome in pursuit of taking out those who killed his father. And the whole time, he's just dripping with testosterone. Just kidding. His character is a flamboyantly gay weirdo who paints the nails of dead bodies and abducts children. It's an interesting take on a character that didn't need an interesting take, and it's a massive distraction from the rest of the movie. Every other character just kinda stands there looking uncomfortable while Momoa licks the faces of other characters like they're mannequins for him to play around with. Not once does any character respond to his ridiculous antics. It's like Momoa or whoever put this twist on the character wanted to do it, but everyone else wouldn't risk having the movie make a bigger deal out of it. Like they wanted to pretend it wasn't happening and just move on. The whole thing was bizarre and a big detriment to the movie. But let's recap the story before we go any further. We start 10 years in the past where Vin Diesel, playing Dom Tortellini, and Paul Walker's hologram are stealing some vault from the fabulous Jason Momoa's father. His dad is killed during the chase, and Momoa is left an orphan, angry and dead set on vengeance. Moving to the present day, we see Dom Tortellini looking terrible. I mean, he looks like a giant sunburnt scrotum who's let their triceps go to shit. Because I haven't been watching this series, I actually haven't seen Vin Diesel in person for a decade, and boy is he looking pretty rough. He's clearly been rubbing bronzer on his skin every day to make this kid think he's his dad. They go to some barbecue where Mexican Joan Rivers is blathering on about family, family, family. Blech. Miss Ande from Game of Thrones is here too, looking like Mr. Ande. Later on, Tortellini reflects on his life and realizes that now that he has a family, he wants out of the game and doesn't want to put them at risk. Right on cue, Charlize Theron shows up from the future and tells him about how fabulous Jason Momoa showed up at her place and stole a graphics card, and he's coming for Tortellini next. Jumping to Rome, the rest of the crew is on a job, and we see Tyrese driving some Saudi prince's car. Long story short, their job is a trap, and they end up letting loose a bomb in Rome. We'll talk more about it later, because it's one of the stupidest things I've seen in a while. But basically, this bomb rolls through the entire city, unguided, immune to all kind of natural forces that would stop it or set it off, and ends up hurtling toward the Vatican, where Tortellini slams into a crane to knock it into a river, where it still blows up and devastates the city. Dom and his crew are framed as terrorists, and Michelle Rodriguez gets arrested. And remember that last little bit, because it'll be important later. We move to some government intelligence agency where Thad Castle is treating Brie Larson how she deserves to be treated.
Well, if it isn't, honestly, I don't know what to call you. Little Miss Nobody.
Then Thad goes on to do a pretty good job summarizing this movie series.
If it violates the laws of God and gravity, they did it twice. Everyone becomes family. It's like a cult with cars.
Lastly, whatever agency this is votes to terminate Dom Tortellini and his crew. Out of nowhere, Helen Mirren shows up to spew some nonsense to Tortellini, then she never comes back in the film. Back home, some shadowy operators show up to take Tortellini Jr., but John Cena shows up and saves him. Then back to the other side of the globe, Brie Larson assaults a bunch of men in a bar for information on Tortellini, rather than just taking 11 seconds to look around the bar for him. She then goes to jail to help bust out Michelle Rodriguez. Again, pay attention to this storyline, it's important. We move to Brazil, where Tortellini and fabulous Mamoa decide to race instead of fighting. Somehow, Mamoa snuck bombs onto the other racers' cars, and somehow Tortellini becomes aware of this mid-race. One racer gets blown and Dom saves the chick. In prison, Rodriguez wakes up next to Charlize Theron. Remember this scene. Now in London, the rest of the crew visits Pete Davidson, and the two rappers fight in a painfully long scene. But at least we get this.
Me, okay? Oh! I deserve that.
Back to prison, Emrod and Charlize break free, and then they have an all-out brawl. Back to John Cena and Tortellini Jr., they get attacked on a plane, but escape on an even smaller plane. Back with the crew, they visit Jason Statham because this movie doesn't have enough going on already. Tortellini heads to a location where he expects to find Mamoa, but it's a trap and Thad Reacher arrests him. We check in on Emrod, who tries to escape her imprisonment, but she finds out she's in Antarctica? The fuck? Mamoa fabulously attacks the prisoner transport convoy, and a whole bunch of shit happens, and then Brie Larson just shows up and shoots everyone from behind, because the bar is just set that low for this movie.
There she is!
Tortellini and Thad make nice and head out to save his son, who's in Portugal. And they're in Brazil. And the crew is in London. And Emrod is in Antarctica. I've seen some disjointed storylines in my day, but fuck me, this is as bad as it gets. Everyone but Emrod eventually shows up in Portugal, where Mamoa is coming for your kids. John Cena sacrifices himself to help Tortellini around 4 cars, which seems kinda unnecessary given how easily they're fighting them off, but whatever. A whole bunch of other shit happens, and then they think Mamoa's been defeated, but dun dun dun, he's fine. Thad then betrays Tortellini, and they shoot down the plane the rest of the crew is in. Tortellini and Tortellini Jr. escape a trap by driving off a dam, which then blows up, which leads to... we have no idea, because the movie cuts away to Antarctica. Okay, so you remember how we were saying to pay attention to Michelle Rodriguez's story because it was important? We lied. It's a complete waste of time in this movie and has no bearing on anything else happening. In the end, she and Charlize escape into Antarctica, where Wonder Woman in a nuclear submarine shows up to rescue them. Seriously, what is this movie? Anyway, it's finally over until we get a mid-credits scene where Mamoa tells The Rock that he's coming for him next. Whatever, who cares? The movie finally comes to an end. Okay, right off the bat, what the hell was with all of the discussion about this potentially being the last movie? I don't know where that came from, but that's out the window now, considering there was zero resolution to a single thing. Tortellini and his son are still waiting for the dam to collapse on them, the rest of the crew just got blown up, Brie Larson is wounded somewhere with the random Brazilian girl, Jason Statham ran off to save Helen Mirren, the chicks are sailing around the Antarctic, and Mamoa and Thad are still around. So there's no way in hell the franchise is done. Anyway, despite all of the stupidity, our prevailing thought throughout this whole thing was, when did these turn into superhero movies? What started off as realistic racing movies that got into some of the nuts and bolts of the whole lifestyle, with an intriguing story to back it up, have just turned into the worst kind of Hollywood nonsense masquerading as spectacle. Dom Tortellini is treated like an incredible Marvel superhero instead of the leg day skipping grease monkey he is. He even picks up his version of a Captain America shield at one point. He's changed a lot from what his character was in the first movie, and it's not for the better. As for the movie itself, Fast X incessantly jumps around between every different group of characters to show us 30 inconsequential seconds of their story at a time. It's a spastic narrative choice that is made all the more exhausting by how stupid everything you're watching is. We were relieved when Fast X finally ended and we were finally free from this mind-numbing prison of a movie. We aren't exaggerating about the number of stupid things witnessed in this movie. We spared you most of the details in our recap, but let's go over some of the more ridiculous things in Fast X. Right at the beginning of the movie, you have this guy pulling out a .50 caliber minigun on top of a Volkswagen. Firing this gun would tear this car's frame in half in a matter of seconds. Then you had Vin Diesel's attempt at a Mexican accent, which is just him with a lisp.
Los bandoleros for life.
Lo bandolero for life.
Vin Diesel wearing a fucking tank top in his wedding photo. Charlize Theron beating off 10 dudes who are heavily armed and armored. This 120-pound woman beat off a literal ton of lethally trained man-meat. Then there was this bomb scene where this unguided bomb just happened to roll through all of Rome on its way to the Vatican, slamming into things all along the way and even catching fire, which doesn't set the bomb off or damage its functionality. Then at the end of its journey, Vin Diesel slams his car into a crane so the backside of the crane will knock the bomb off into the water. And Vin Diesel's car is totally fine and still able to outrun the subsequent explosion. Then when he races Momoa to settle their beef, there's 2 other racers in the race for no reason, and Tortellini just divines through the heavens somehow that there are bombs under their cars. Everywhere Tortellini goes, he just has these super spy muscle cars just waiting for him. And you know what? I'm not even going to list anymore. Everything I just said isn't even half of it. That was all within the first 45 minutes of the movie. Pretty much every single action scene is ridiculous from head to toe. It's just a fire hose of shit from beginning to end. Now, Jason Momoa's brilliant character. Woof. I think he thought this was going to be his Joker moment, where he got to play an unhinged, iconic madman. But this was more of an I Am Sam moment.
Hi, this is Sam!
It's the kind of performance you just need to see to appreciate how fucking odd the whole thing was. Toward that end, here are a few of the fabulous, brilliant Momoa moments from Fast X.
Ooh, black on black look good. I know what you're thinking, and yes, the carpet matches the drapes. Thank you. Do not touch that. Let it dry. I feel like it tones down the masculinity a little bit, which we all need these days. Someone's gonna come and bury you guys soon. I'm gonna go wash my hair. Do you like surprises, Dommy? I adore them. Okay, bye, Dommy. No, you hang up first. Okay. Off you go. Family. You butthole! Oh no, she's in peril. What will you do? Did you hit me with a helicopter back there? Ow, you big brute.
Everyone wants to rush to the theaters to see Jason Momoa play a character like this. It was just bizarre and distracting and exhausting all at once. As you can tell, these movies are just not for us. And we generally think they're not for most people. Yet they keep going and going, and it rattles our belief in humanity just a little bit. But if you are able to completely turn your brain off for this long and enjoy these movies, hey, more power to you. And to be fair, it could be much worse. All things considered, this movie is here to try and entertain. Whether it's accomplishing that or not, it's not whining about things or promoting any agendas, so we can respect that at least. Anyway, this movie is a hate watch in our book, and we think there are countless better ways for you to spend your time and your money. But what did you think? Are you able to get through these movies without rolling your eyes right out of your head? If you gave up on this franchise, which movie did you stop watching at? Let us know in the comments below. And remember to leave a like on the video if you liked it, and subscribe to the channel for reviews of other current shows and movies. Thank you for going down this quarter mile with us, and we'll catch you on the next one.